During a corporate inauguration, my stepfather smirked. Some people plant seeds. Some just water the gardens of others. Everyone laughed as I nodded. I spent 28 years gathering influence, and the day he retired, I triggered a financial scandal so large that not only was his name stripped from every building, his grandchildren were banned from leadership positions in every major firm in our state. His family tree now lists 3 consecutive bankruptcies after his fall. When I was 22, I stood in front of a room filled with business giants and got humiliated by the man who raised me. It was supposed to be a proud night. My stepfather, Philip Crane, had just opened his new corporate tower in downtown Des Moines. Big glass building, shiny floors, valet parking, the whole deal. I was working at his company back then, barely above an intern. I dressed in my best shirt, combed my hair, and hoped maybe I'd get a mention. He called me up to the stage, put his arm around me like he was proud. Then he leaned into the mic and said, "Some people plant seeds. Some just water the gardens of others." Everyone laughed, loud, and I just stood there, smiling, nodding, like an idiot. That was the last time I let him laugh at me. Let me tell you what kind of man Philip Crane is. He made his money running one of the biggest infrastructure contracting firms in the Midwest. Bridges, tunnels, state roads. If it had concrete and a state seal, he wanted it. He was good at playing people. He could talk a senator into dropping a bill and make it sound like a favor. My mom married him when I was 12. We went from a rented duplex in Dubuque to a 6-bedroom house with a circular driveway. To her it was a dream come true. To me it was a prison in disguise. Philip never hit me. He was worse. He chipped away at me slowly, called me the helper at family dinners, told his friends I was book smart, not boardroom smart. When I got a business degree, he said, "Let's see what you do with it." Then gave me a job fetching coffee and updating spreadsheets. He made it clear I'd never be more than a sidekick. By the time I was 25, I had enough. I left his company with no goodbye, no fight, just a quiet resignation and a cleared desk. He didn't even ask why. He didn't care. That's what made it easier to disappear. I started Westech Freight in Cedar Rapids. It was small at first, just me, one friend, and a laptop. We handled logistics for local farmers, transported feed, equipment, seed stock. Boring stuff but real. Honest. While I worked, I kept an eye on him. Watched who he hired. Watched who he fired. Made a list of every person he stepped on. Not just names, full records. Where they worked, what they did, how he ruined them. By the time I was 32, some of them started coming to work for me. Natalie, who? Brilliant analyst. Fired for talking out of turn in a board meeting. Philip said she didn't understand her place. Malcolm Reyes. Managed 3 state contracts. Got axed after asking for fair bonuses for his team. Janet Boyd, HR director. Found out about shady bonuses going to Philip's nephew. Reported it. Got labeled difficult and blacklisted. They didn't forget. Neither did I. Westech grew slow but steady. We reinvested every dollar. Never overreached. Always made our books clean. Philip's company, Crane Holdings, was bloated. He passed on anything he didn't understand. Tech, green infrastructure, mid-market AI. Called it liberal nonsense. That was fine with me. I made deals where he didn't look. By 49, Westech was close to $500 million in value. We weren't flashy, but we were solid. I also had interests in 4 other companies. Not public. Not under my name. Trusts, proxies, silent partners. I never wanted the spotlight. I just wanted control. Then I heard he was retiring. Same building. Same type of gala. His retirement party. His son Carter was being handed the reins. I didn't get an invite, obviously. Didn't need one. Because that same night, the SEC announced a formal investigation into Crane Holdings. Headline was everywhere by morning. Federal probe into Crane Holdings financials. Shell companies and collusion alleged. You want to know how that happened? Let's back up. Over the years, I'd quietly bought my way back into Philip's world. Not as Aaron Gates, but through shell firms and dummy trusts. I bought small assets that ended up inside Crane Holdings. Got a seat at the table, not a visible one, but one that mattered. Then I helped build a trail. One that pointed toward misused funds, hidden accounts, foreign shells, the kind of stuff the SEC loves. The straw that broke them was a trust called Shelbourne Meadows. Philip had it in South Dakota, under his son's names. But the trust had another name on it, one of mine. One the lawyers connected directly to several mistaken cosigns. The SEC thought they'd caught him hiding money overseas. They hadn't. They'd caught me showing them what I wanted them to see. The day after the probe, the bank pulled Crane Holdings' line of credit. Stock crashed. Suppliers froze contracts. Board meetings turned into shouting matches. 3 of the board members were people I'd helped put there. Quietly. Over years. They voted to freeze all executive bonuses and lock down accounts. Philip lost control before his speech was even over. But I wasn't finished. I funded investigations into his past donations. Turns out those university buildings and health wings had some ugly strings attached: layoffs, union busting, bribery. 5 major institutions voted to remove his name. His honorary doctorate? Gone. His face in the State Business Hall of Fame? Taken down. He tried to pass the company to Carter. Didn't work. 3 other firms where Carter held board seats got anonymous legal complaints. I'd collected enough evidence over 10 years to prove conflict of interest. Most of it was real. Some of it was carefully interpreted. They dropped him like dead weight. Carter filed for bankruptcy 6 months later. Philip Jr. tried to launch his own company. I got word of it and signed a huge contract with them under a false name. Pulled it 3 weeks in. Triggered a loan default. Another bankruptcy. Then his daughter tried to get hired at one of the banks I had shares in. I made 1 phone call. Denied. Now people whisper when they hear the name Crane. Investors avoid them. Firms won't meet with them. Even their grandkids won't be allowed near a boardroom. Philip sent me a letter. Handwritten. Said I'd overreacted. Called me family. I didn't answer. I framed it. Hung it on the wall across from my desk, where I can see it every day. For a while I thought that was it. The buildings were stripped of his name. His son's bankrupt. His network destroyed. People who used to line up to shake his hand now crossed the street to avoid him. But something felt off. I started getting phone calls late at night. Hang up. First I thought it was nothing. Then came the emails. Anonymous, vague, but they had just enough inside information to get my attention. One of them said, "You built your tower on stolen land just like him." I didn't take it seriously until one of my investment partners, Ed Tucker, pulled out of a deal last minute. No warning.
No explanación.
He just ghosted me. I worked with Ed for over a decade. Then another partner, Shayna Watts, called and said someone had told her I was being investigated for financial misconduct. She wouldn't tell me who. Just that someone was digging into my past. Now I was pissed. I'd spent 28 years playing the long game. I never cut corners. Never cooked books. My legal team was tight, and every paper trail was clean. But I knew what this was. Philip wasn't trying to fight me in court. He was trying to smear me in private. I had to go deeper. I hired a digital forensics firm, a quiet, expensive group that handled only high-level corporate sabotage cases. Within 2 weeks, they found it. A private consultancy in Minneapolis had been paid through a charity front. They specialized in reputation management, which really meant spreading lies that were hard to prove false. And the man funding them? A trust account registered under the name Crane Legacy Initiative. He couldn't get back what he lost, so he was trying to burn everything I built. Classic Philip. But then I made a discovery that stopped me cold. That trust account? It wasn't opened by Philip. It was opened by Carter. I didn't understand it at first. Carter was ruined. Broke. His house foreclosed. His divorce made the business columns. He even lost custody of his own son due to emotional instability. Why would he come after me? I dug deeper. Carter had a silent partner, someone fronting the money. And guess who it was? My mother. That one knocked the wind out of me. I hadn't talked to her in over a decade. Last time we spoke, she said I'd betrayed the only real family I had. That Philip wasn't perfect but had provided. She told me not to come to her funeral. And now she was secretly funneling money to Carter to help him smear me. First, I didn't want to believe it. But the paper trail was clear. She'd sold some of her jewelry, cashed out one of her retirement accounts, and used a middleman firm in Kansas City to wire the money. I sat with that for a while. It wasn't just revenge anymore. Now it was betrayal. I could have gone public. Could have released the documents and destroyed what was left of Carter's and my mother's name. But I decided on something worse. Silence. I told my legal team to shut it down quietly. Then I bought out the digital firm they used. Not sued. Bought. Laid everyone off the next day. I made Carter feel like he'd gotten away with something. Gave him enough hope to think maybe he had a shot at rebuilding. That's when I called in a few old debts. Remember Janet Boyd? The HR director who lost her career because she tried to do the right thing? She was now head of internal affairs at a national financial ethics firm, the same one Carter applied to for consulting clearance. Without that, he couldn't get hired anywhere with a license. She flagged his file for ethics concerns. Then Natalie, who made some calls to the IRS about a certain unreported trust account. And Malcolm Reyes? He just happened to be very close to someone at the Iowa Board of Corporate Accountability. Carter's last hope for getting licensed again. They denied him. 3 black marks. In 3 weeks. Game over. As for my mother, I didn't speak to her. I simply bought the nursing company that managed her assisted living contract. Then I downgraded her services to the bare minimum legally. She lived but not comfortably. Her house was sold. Her name? Gone from every charity board she ever sat on. She got no visitors. No legacy. Nothing. It should have ended there. Philip humiliated. Carter crushed. My mother erased from every board she once used to look down on me from. But something didn't sit right. Not in the business. Not in me. One day, Malcolm walked into my office and said, "We've got a leak." I looked up from my laptop. Where? Not where. Who? It turns out someone inside Westech had been feeding information to a private financial firm in Milwaukee. At first, we thought it was just background stuff, public records, resume changes, deals already made public. But then one of our top clients, Zier Logistics, backed out of a 10-year shipping contract. That was unheard of. We had the lowest rates, cleanest books. There was no reason for them to walk. Until we checked. Zier's CEO had just had dinner with Philip's former lawyer. That's when it hit me. They weren't just trying to sabotage me. They were trying to rebuild Crane Holdings from the inside. I called a meeting with only 4 people: my legal chief, Malcolm, Natalie, and my CFO. We locked the doors. Turned off our phones. Spoke like we were in enemy territory. I laid out everything I knew. The fake firms. The rebranded accounts. The sudden appearance of ex-Crane execs joining smaller logistics companies all across the Midwest. Then Natalie said something that stopped the room. There's someone helping them. And they're using your tech to do it. First, I didn't get it. Then she explained. Westech had launched a data analysis tool 5 years ago. Quiet. B2B only. Meant for internal use and a few close partners. It helped companies optimize freight paths, but more importantly, it showed who you were doing business with, where your competitors were shipping, where your vendors had vulnerabilities. We'd licensed it to 6 firms. Now, one of those licenses had been cloned. Used under a fake firm name. And someone inside Westech had helped them do it. We did an internal audit. Quiet. No warning. 3 days later, we found the mole. Her name was Rena Darwell. She was mid-level IT, hired through a third-party contractor 5 years ago. Turns out, Rena's husband was Philip's former CFO's nephew. She'd been slipping code changes into our analytics software for almost 2 years. Small ones. Unnoticed. Harmless on the surface. But they were quietly transmitting user patterns back to a private server in Nebraska. Rena wasn't even in the office when we confronted her. She was working remote in Kansas City. We locked her out of every system. Hired a private firm to recover all breach points. Called in federal cybercrime authorities not just to cover ourselves, but to bury her in litigation so deep she'd never work again. But it didn't stop there. 2 weeks later, I got a message from an old college friend. He worked at a mid-sized insurance firm in Omaha. He said, "You didn't hear this from me, but someone's been asking questions about your adoption records." That froze me. I wasn't adopted, not exactly. My mom remarried when I was 12, And Philip signed the guardianship papers when I was 14 to give me his last name temporarily for school and medical stuff. But we never filed formal adoption papers. I'd always kept my birth name Gates for legal and personal reasons. Why would someone dig into that? I found out a week later. Carter had filed a legal motion to sue me for unauthorized access to trust funds, under a claim that I posed as a legal heir of Philip Crane's family. It was absurd. I'd never taken a cent from the Crane estate, never used the name after I left, never claimed blood rights. But Carter's motion was built on lies that sounded true, enough to get into court. He wasn't trying to win. He was trying to get me to respond publicly, to drag my name into depositions, courtrooms, financial statements, to get the media whispering, "What is Aaron Gates hiding?" I made one phone call to Janet Boyd. She called her contact in the state AG's office. 2 days later, Carter's lawyer got an official warning for filing what amounted to a malicious civil harassment suit. He dropped it within hours. But that's when I realized something deeper was happening. Carter wasn't working alone anymore. He was desperate, sure. But he was too well-informed, too resourced, and too protected to be this sloppy. That meant someone bigger was backing him. A firm. A group. Family maybe. So I started watching. Again. But this time not as a businessman. As a hunter. I kept watching for 3 more months. Quietly.
No moves.
I let Carter think I was off balance. Let him think the fake lawsuit scared me. I knew he wasn't smart enough to pull this off alone. Someone with real power was behind him. Then I found it. A hedge fund out of Chicago. Bland name. Shell website. But when we traced its board members, we found 2 big ones. Richard Faulkner and Douglas Linney, both former Crane Holdings execs who were forced out back when Philip was trying to save face. They hated Philip. But they hated me more. Because in their eyes, I didn't just destroy the Cranes. I ended the old world they built their careers on. Power through handshakes, backroom deals, and legacy names. And now they were trying to rebuild it through Carter using my stolen tech, old connections, and blackmail. They forgot one thing. I don't lose twice. I didn't strike first this time. I struck last. While they were watching me, I was watching them. For 6 weeks, Natalie and Malcolm worked with 2 cybersecurity firms and a private federal ethics group. We traced every company they touched. Every LLC. Every private grant. Every contract they tried to land with Carter as a front. And then I made my final play. I set up a fake company. Made it look like a growing logistics firm with operations in 6 states. We used burner names, shell leases, fake employees, all legit enough to pass a basic check. Then we reached out to Carter. Said we were looking for a strategic partner who understood public contracts. He took the bait. So did Faulkner and Linney. We let them draw up everything. Proposed contracts, risk disclosures, back-end accounting methods. They even suggested we route cash through a third-party LLC in Wyoming, same playbook as before. They laid it all out. We had every word recorded. The moment they signed the draft agreement, we sent the full package: recordings, forged statements, falsified risk docs, and interstate wire instructions straight to the SEC, FBI, and Iowa State Finance Authority. It triggered 3 investigations across state lines. Within 72 hours, Faulkner's firm was raided. Linney's accounts were frozen. Carter. He tried to deny everything. Claimed he was just an advisor. Didn't matter. We had video of him explaining the shell structure on a Zoom call to our undercover consultant. He was arrested for fraud, wire manipulation, and conspiracy. That fake lawsuit he tried to use against me? It became part of the federal obstruction charges. He cried in court. I watched from the back row. Philip heard the news from a hospice nurse. Stage 3 lung cancer. I didn't even know he was sick. I hadn't seen him in years. He sent me a letter through a lawyer. It said, "You win. They're all gone. You're all that's left. Congratulations." I didn't reply. But I did send a wreath to the hospice with a card that said, "Some people plant seeds." That was it. My mother died alone. She never tried to reach out again after I stripped her of all board positions and left her name out of every endowment she ever cared about. Her estate was tied up in probate for so long. The state reclaimed most of it for unpaid care fees. The Crane name? Worthless now. No board will touch it. No bank will loan to it. No school will name a hallway after it. 3 bankruptcies. A criminal conviction. 5 removed building plaques. A family that once bragged about legacy now has none. But I didn't walk away clean. After it was all done, I stepped down as CEO. Natalie runs Westec now. She's better at it than I ever was. I moved to a small house outside of Iowa City. Quiet.
No marble floors.
No drivers. Just me and silence. Sometimes I sit out back drinking coffee, wondering if it was all worth it. I lost my mother. I lost any chance at a real family. I gave up 28 years chasing a man I hated, just to make sure no one remembered his name. But then I remember that night, him with his hand on my shoulder, crowd laughing while I stood there like a ghost. And I smile, because I didn't just water the garden. I made sure the whole damn tree rotted from the roots.